Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this last webinar of the Smart Manufacturing Week Luxembourg 2020. My name is Arnaud Duban, and together with my colleague Jean-Philippe Arier and Nathalie Ram, we will moderate this session today. Before going deeper into the subject of today, I would like to take a few minutes to explain you the functionalities of our environment. As you can see, this online webinar offers a lot of functionalities to enrich your experience and to allow you to make the most value of your presence today. On the right-hand side, you see three icons. The first one allows you to ask questions to the speakers. So you can type here whatever question you want to address to the speakers. Be aware that these questions are public, so everyone can see it. The second icon is a poll option. We have here some question for you after each presentation, so that you can share your ID. And the third one is the list of people who is attending the session. On the left-hand side, you can see the virtual booth, which is where you can ask and enter in contact with the service provider. And then you have the group rooms, where you can access people from the same topic. And you have also here the possibility to have the full list of people who registered to the whole Smart Manufacturing Week. The replay of the previous seminar can also be accessed here on the left-hand side. So this is the first word. Today we have a very interesting agenda. We have very interesting people who will present their expertise regarding smart business strategy. As Michael Porter said, strategy is about making choices and trade-offs. It's about deliberately choosing to be different. Indeed, in this confusing pandemic period we are living today, we can debate about the possibility to act deliberately and the choice to be different, but building a strong strategy and execute it is essential to remain competitive on the market. In this webinar, we will showcase three complementary aspects of business strategy. The first one will be about the use of artificial intelligence to secure bad customers debt. The second one will be about crafting new business model based on business model in Canvas. And the last one is a showcase of contactless desk for new customer experience. Each of the three speakers will share their expertise from their own perspective, from solution providers that could support your business to become smarter, via methodological approach that could help you to think strategically, and to practical implementation of the path to smarter business. We will listen to the three presentations by our three guests of today. Mr. Edouard Beauvois will first start, and then we have the talk from Max Newcas, and we will finish with Laurent Zeul from Minusine. Let's start directly now with the presentation of Edouard. Edouard Beauvois is the co-founder and the CEO of the startup AI Evidence, and will show us what is the added value of artificial intelligence to optimize cash and collection management. Edouard, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Arnaud. Right, so if you don't mind, I will share my screen because I would like to start with a few slides, actually. So, indeed, like you said, Arnaud, it's really the purpose of today to understand how artificial intelligence can help when it comes to being paid on time by customers. So, of course, once we have customers, it's really the idea that you want to be paid, and of course, that you want to be paid on time. So what happens very often is that when you start, or even before onboarding customers, you spend quite some time, at least many companies do spend some time actually to understand who are their future customers and what's their behavior and how trustful they are. But the question comes afterwards is, how much time do you spend then to review their customers once customers have become recurring customers? How much do companies understand what's exactly the risk related to their customer portfolio? So how much do they really get the big picture of their debt portfolio? And finally, how much do they act accordingly? So how much do they act taking into account either their knowledge about the global portfolio, or how much do they act taking into account some specific customer situations? So that's exactly what I will focus on during the presentation now. So just to provide you with some figures, but really roughly, bad debts or unpaid amounts the total cost related to it represent about 2.3% of companies' annual turnover in Europe, and bad debt explain as well 25% of SME bankruptcies. We know there are precautions like credit insurances or rating agencies, but speaking about credit insurances, for example, those days, what we see very often on the market is that credit insurances are reducing the limit and increasing premiums, which puts companies into a situation where business continues, right? And they have to take a decision with regards to up to how much business can they go with these customers, knowing that they will not be insured anymore for at least part of it. Speaking about the context, I mean, it's not an issue. It's known for everyone. 71% of the companies have had to accept longer payment terms. And of course, late payments reduce liquidity of companies. It's not a surprise. And many companies are still expecting a recession. So the question is, how, if I am working with my customers, how on the one hand, can I be sure that I won't have issues or payment issues in the future with those customers? That's one case. And on the other hand, assuming that I'm still long in cash, how much can I use my position to help my own customers and even proactively propose them longer payment terms to support those customers? And to be in a position to do that, actually, we need to work with different parameters that I will explain. But still, knowing how operations works, at least from a cash perspective, we still see 4 key issues on the market. There is one related to cash accuracy. And the question behind is, how accurate is my cash position beyond, of course, the information that I have from the invoice being simply the due date. Second issue is really the lack of anticipation. And the question becomes, how much am I in a position to anticipate future coming customer issues? The third one is, late payments are becoming more and more standard for the moment, unfortunately. But the teams to collect the money remain the same. So how much can I actually better prioritize their work, and how much can I better balance the workload of those people to better chase either the cash or to limit profit and loss impact in the company? And last but not least, assuming that I'm trying new actions, how effective is the measure of the impact of those new actions that I will take with regards to my customers to collect the money? And this always assuming that we know our customers. And it's a question that I always ask when I meet a company is, how much do you know your customers? And every time I've got the same answer: we know our customers. And of course, as part of the processes with those customers, we do debt portfolio analysis, and we come back to insights. And very often, of course, we detect customers having positions that swiftly move from, say, good customers to bad customers. And in front of you, you have a true example of a company to which I said, well, look, obviously you have a severe issue with this customer, and it's obvious from the graph, right? Where we only analyze one parameter out of the many parameters that we do analyze. And that company told me, you're not right. We don't have any issue with this customer. So of course I started asking the question of why. And the answer was simple. We know this customer for 10 years. They are our largest customer in terms of turnover for the last 3 years. Yes, we had some payment issues, but we trust them. And that speech comes very often. And well, by the way, that customer went bankruptcy a few months afterwards. So the question is now, can we work with AI, and can AI help actually in the cash collection process? And of course, the answer is yes. But before I explain how, I need to introduce a few concepts. The first concept is about the data and the different layers of data that we can find in a debt portfolio. There is one layer which is about the data that you know, right? And I just spoke about it, whether it's true or not, but at least it's the experience that you have with your customers. But what's even better is to tap into what you don't know. So what is hidden? So small changes of payment patterns, small reactions or reactions to specific actions, and so on. And then what we create, the data related to what we create. And what we create are those new options to assess maybe new collection strategies or new collection actions that we can try for a small series of customers before we expand actually to the whole bunch of customers that we have in portfolio. And of course, we can test and see whether those new methods that we apply are valid or not. Speaking about data, the question is then, what can I get from my data? And the answer is obvious. Well, from a classical model, classical KPIs. And what do we mean by classical KPIs? We mean DSO, very often used, average delays to days to payment, overdue amounts, overdue invoices, and so on. Now, the application of AI and specific algorithms leads to new doors open. And those doors open actually can be presented into three categories. There is one which are the new measures. What's the risk of my customers? What are the payment patterns? What's the impact of different measures that I can take? I spoke about it. But what objectives can I put for my teams in terms of cash, in terms of P&L? Can I measure the impact of the work of my team in terms of cash collection? That's one. So that's the new measures. The second one is about the predictions. Can I anticipate whether I will have an issue with my customer? Can I predict the expected payment dates of my customers? And yes, the answer is yes. And can I even combine it together to build a cash position? And third is about new features that can be delivered afterwards. So once you calculate it all, what can you do? Well, you can simulate evolution of portfolios, you can simulate strategies, but you can also define priorities and propose actions. So that's really the idea of artificial intelligence it can bring to you. But in the end, to get what? To get, of course, a reduction of the overdue amounts and, of course, of the bad debts. But to have an improve of operational efficiency, that means maybe do more with less, especially in those days where people have more work and where contacting customers is probably less easy than before. And of course, an improvement in cash accuracy. And all this knowing the customer context and therefore still improving customer satisfaction. Example, we know then in the collection process with all those measures and all those calculations, we know what are the payment habits. So how is our customers reacting to dunning? So before we ask the team to work on the dunning, we'll first wait for the dunning. Or another example, it's the first time that a customer pays late. So how shall I contact him? Shall I contact him or her? With what tone? With what message? And so on. And because we have the information, we can actually fine tune the interactions with customers. What I wanted to do, I mean, talking about it is good, but let's quickly see it in the solution, and let me present you briefly what in terms of software it can provide you. It's not my idea to present you everything, but maybe to focus on some key points, like, for example, what we call a payment scale. With these new types of algorithms, you can actually know how many number of days you will need to collect, for example, 50% of the amounts which are outstanding. That's one. You can know what's the breakdown of your portfolio per payments or payment profile. So here in that case, for example, 50%, it's a demo scenario, 50% of my customers are very bad payers. We know that on average we should have 10 or 15%. So here we have exaggerated a little bit, but what we mean by very bad payment profile, it really means customers where you always need to put a lot of efforts. They always pay late. You always have to send them a few reminders and call them a few times. It doesn't mean that they will not pay. It's just say that you will have to spend a lot of effort. And by the way, those 50% represent 71% of the overdue. So it already gives you some insights on where to put the efforts when you want to collect the money. As well, the risk here, 17% of my portfolio is with a risk very high. It means actually that for those 97 customers, the invoices which are open will not be paid, or at least that there is a very high probability that those invoices will not be paid. And of course, if you want to see the detail, you can see, but more interestingly, you can actually see the evolution parameters. So here I know what's the evolution of the payment profile over the time. And by the way, when your payment profile is, you know it takes time actually to evolve. So in that case, which by the way is, it has evolved extremely fast. So that means it confirms actually the severity issue, and it's confirmed as well by a risk type being what you have as well, and that's very often used when you want to collect the money back, are different payment habits. So what's the payment window of the customers? What is the week during which they pay, the day? And like I said, how much do they react to reminders and to payment terms? Now, more interestingly, again, from an invoice perspective, I will just focus on two columns, the due date, which is the due date in the invoice, and the payment date. And you see the payment date has two colors, black or magenta. When it's black, actually the payment has been made. It's the actual date of the payment. And you see here that the customer paid 40 or 27 or 29 days after the due date. And magenta, it's the prediction made by the system. So the system is in a position to tell you actually when those payments will be made. Now, the question is, how shall I use it? Well, there are different purposes. One is, of course, to set the priority, for the collection team, and to say the bigger the gap is between the predictive payment date and the due date, the sooner you need to intervene, and maybe even prior to the due date. That's one case. And the second case can be about the payment forecast, where you can build we can reconstruct the payment forecast in which you will see that if it's presented by due date, you would expect close to 18 million to be paid. And if it's with the predictions, it actually presents that you will only get 300K. Again, it's a demo system, but it allows you to, on the one hand, know exactly where is the gap, but it also allows you to trigger a discussion with the treasurer on whether or not you need to fill in the gap, how you will fill in the gap. Is it with the support of the treasury by concluding a money market, or is it by an extra effort by the collection team? And I insist on the notion of extra effort because the standard efforts are already included in the predictions. And to conclude, speaking about the extra efforts that need to be made, the system can propose you areas so where extra efforts can be made. So here 3 million when it's actually about a cash strategy, or 14 million when it's about a risk strategy. So really, in a nutshell, it's what I wanted to tell you. So AI can definitely help optimize the cash collection, the different processes, but also it can help you understanding your view on the customers to better serve your customers or to anticipate customer payment issues. So many thanks for your attention, and I will now stop sharing the presentation.
Thank you very much, Edouard, for this very practical presentation of what artificial intelligence can do in this field of cash collection. We have a little poll, which I invite you to respond now. If you click on the poll section, you can see the question, do you think that AI could be applicable to your business? Yes, in order to enhance operation. Yes, in order to develop new services. Or no, this is not applicable to my business. So this is just to have an idea to what extent artificial intelligence is applicable for you. This is now the time for our second speaker, namely Dr. Mark Snukas. Mark Snukas is Director of Innovation at Deloitte Luxembourg. He is the author of several books about innovation and strategy. And Mark will talk to us about crafting business model innovation. Mark, the floor is yours.
Mark, I think you're muted. So if I... No, still not. But we can read on your lips, huh? So I think that, yeah. Maybe you can try to refresh, maybe. How?
Worked before.
It's okay now.
I hear you. Yeah, it's perfect.
Does it work now?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's why we tested before. Okay, so then let me go back to slides. Yeah, sorry for that. So I was saying that I'd like to go through three main topics today, so the next 15 minutes. So outline briefly why business model innovation, what is the importance of business model innovation, what are the benefits that you could get out of it, then go into what is business model innovation anyhow and illustrate that also with a couple of examples, and finally go into the how and busting some myths of how to actually transform business model innovation. So we always think there is a certain way of doing it, and some companies might think it's difficult to do it, but I can show you that how it is really done based on the research that I have done with companies, how they actually really do it. So let's jump into the importance of business model innovation. And I'd like to show that or illustrate that with an example. Now, you all know the example. That's why I picked it, because everybody knows Apple iTunes. Now, Apple iTunes and the iPod combination, Apple did actually not invent the MP3 player. There was an MP3 player. So this is the MP-Man F10 was the first official MP3 player, which was launched in 1997. The Apple only came out with the iPod in 2001. And Apple did also not invent the idea of downloadable music, because before there was Napster, many years, I mean, like something like 10 years before. Nevertheless, Apple was very, very successful with this iPod and iTunes combination. In fact, after 3 years after having launched it, it was 50% of their revenues, and it's considered of being key to the success that Apple still has today, because it was able to position itself. Now, the innovation, the real innovation that Apple did here was the business model behind using this product and this service, which existed already before. It was the first business model that allowed you actually to legally download music. It was the first business model that the musicians, the artists, but also the record labels were happy with, and it was the first product, service, and business model combination that actually provided real customer value, and it made it easier for customers to buy songs relatively cheap for the 99 cents, and it didn't have to you didn't have to worry with all the things like with Napster when it came to downloading music. Now, this brings me to the thing that, so business model innovation is important for the success of your business, right? And it is actually important for commercialization of new technology. So if you have a new technology, you might need to have a new business model in order to bring it to market. These days, it has also become a major element of competitive advantage. Arnaud said earlier that strategy is all about competitive advantage, right? And the business model is a strategic choice that you can make that's going to help you to be more competitive. It's very fundamental to performance. So one business model is better than another in terms of what it costs you to operate and the revenues it can bring you. And something that is very important today and that we have actually seen a lot during the COVID pandemic is it helps you to adapt to a changing environment. Due to COVID, due to the lockdown, consumer behavior has changed a lot, and lots of companies have started, small companies, medium companies, big companies, have started to change their business model in order to adapt to the changing customer behavior. So on the one hand, you can change and adapt to customer behavior. On the other hand, you might also need a new business model to seize opportunities and market needs that you might see in the market. So what is business model innovation anyhow, right? So there are many definitions out of there. There's also many tools, like Arnaud mentioned, the business model canvas that helps you to describe a business model. To make it really simple, it's just about a new way of doing business, a new way of operating, and it might be a new way of how you make money. So what customers actually do pay for. This is what we usually say. I think it's important to add a key element here. It's not just about being new for the sake of being new, if you like, and being innovative for the sake of being innovative. At the end of the day, you have to provide value for your customers. And that is something that we typically focus on quite a lot. But a business model has also value, or it needs to have value for you as a company. And increasingly, as no company is operating on its own, but you have partners, you have suppliers you work with, and the business model that you create should also create value for the larger ecosystem that you are embedded in. So going back to Arnaud said, strategy is about choice. So if you want to innovate, you can choose to innovate on the products and services. You can choose to go into new markets, address new customer segments, address new customer needs, or you can also choose to innovate around your business model. Let me illustrate that with another well-known example, Amazon. So I know Amazon is a big company, but just to give you the idea of how the Amazon business model was so crucial to their success. Now, Amazon started off with selling books, so no innovation on the product, on the service side. It sold initially only in the US, so also there, no big innovation, no new customer segment, no new need that they addressed, but they changed the business model. So they said instead of building or renting bookstores in a traditional way, we're going to do it online. Now, the advantage of doing that is that the business model allowed Amazon to venture into completely new areas also. So because they had this online sales model, they could go into all types of products. Because they had the infrastructure of having to run their business online, they could go into something like Amazon Web Services, where they rent out their cloud computing performance, which they need for the traditional business. So they had an asset, and they thought about what else can we do with the asset, with the IT infrastructure that we have. And then they also they used their platform to offer the possibility to other people, third parties, to use Amazon, to sell on Amazon. And then they even extended that into what is called fulfillment by Amazon. So these days, everybody, every company, you can sell your products on Amazon. Amazon is going to do everything from you for the fulfillment. The only thing that you need to do is you ship your product to an Amazon warehouse. Amazon is going to take care of the sales. They're going to take care of the logistics. They're going to take care of guarantees and warranties. All that is covered by Amazon. Obviously, it comes at a fee, but Amazon, again, was able to launch or leverage its platform to go into new businesses. And these days, think about 30% of the business that is done on Amazon is actually from third parties and no longer from Amazon itself. And then obviously, so the direct model also allowed new products like the Kindle, where you can get your book with the touch of a button. So all this just to say that having this online business model actually allowed Amazon to venture into new geographies. So it was relatively easy to go global, and it also enabled Amazon to go into new products, services, and businesses, which a traditional retail bookstore business model does not allow you to do. So it's worth really thinking about your business model and then thinking about the assets, the resources you have underlying your business model, and how you can leverage these for new products, new services, and how you can leverage these to adapt also how companies are changing, what the market is changing. Here's another example is by Hilti. So Hilti is a Liechtenstein-based producer of power tools for the construction industry. You've probably all seen these. Now, traditionally, Hilti has focused a lot on product innovation, and they were very successful with that. But at some point, there is also some stagnation of growth. So there is only so much you can do in terms of products and innovating and keep on improving your products, if you like. Then they introduced services. And here they took a very interesting approach in terms of looking at different types of customers, if you like, within their customers. So you have on the left, for example, billing, innovation, and payment. So they looked at purchasing, they looked at the finance people, and they thought, what can we offer to finance? So they change their customer, their target customer, if you like, by offering different products to them. And they also changed over time the business model. And I think the biggest business model change for Hilti was fleet management. So the idea that you no longer have to buy the tools from Hilti, but you can rent them on a monthly basis. So you have a subscription that you pay. With the subscription, you get access to the tools, but you get also access to maintenance. You get access to upgrades of the tools. Hilti takes care of the logistics. So you can call them up. You say, I need this and that tool on my construction site on Cloche-d'Or, for example. And then Hilti is going to take care of all of that. So the business model change here is that Hilti, as I said, no longer sells, but it kind of rents and leases the tools. So from a one-time payment, you go to a recurring monthly subscription, but it also changes in the sense that Hilti needed to add new capabilities and new services, like, for example, the logistics are something that they didn't need to do before. Now they have to do logistics. They have to manage tool inventories and so on. So just a couple of examples to show you really what is business model innovation all about. Now, this brings me to my last point, so busting the myths of how to transform your business model. So if you're thinking about doing business model innovation and you read up in the literature, there are kind of four things that keep coming back around processes, trial and error, experimentation, and value proposition that very often I think they are not true. So if you look at how companies, successful business model innovators have actually done it, they didn't stick to what is in the literature, if you like. And these things also make it easier, actually, if you don't stick what's in the literature, I would say, make it easier to make business model innovation happen. So the first myth is all about a typical process. Typically, and that's how we usually do things, we spend a lot of time on analyzing what is all the situation, then we develop an idea, and then we try to test that, and we implement it on a larger scale. Now, what we really see, what is really working is acting small tests. So you act before you do a lot of analysis. You learn from these actions, you gain insights, you see what works, you see what doesn't work, and then you design the next iteration, so to say. And once you have something that actually works well, then you scale it up and then you make it big. Second myth is around experimenting with various business model ideas and options. So usually you are being told, in order to find a successful business model innovation idea, or any type of innovation, actually, you need to experiment with lots of ideas. Now, experimenting with lots of ideas is very often not feasible, because especially if you are a medium-sized or a smaller company, you can't experiment with a lot of different business models. One of the companies that I looked at for my research was a Swiss hospital. How would you experiment different business models in a hospital, right? You would have needed to set up different hospitals, for example. So that was just not feasible. So what I see is that the successful business model innovators, they actually focus on one idea. So they pick an idea, they work on that idea, and the experimentation is not so much on different ideas, but the experimentation is on how can we make this one idea actually work and take off. The third myth is all around customer value. So we hear a lot about we need to create value for the customers. As I said already earlier, in reality, it's not just about the customer, it's about the customer as well, yes, but a business model also needs to provide value for your ecosystem, and it needs to provide value for you as a company, like we showed in the example of Amazon. So the value for Amazon was that it also enabled Amazon to go into completely different areas. And the last one, and maybe the biggest myth, I would say, is that when we talk about innovation, we always hear about you need to fail fast. It's about trial and error. And what I actually see is that it's much more about what I would call trial and success. So what I mean by that is if you start acting and you start experimenting, some stuff is not going to work and some stuff is going to work. And instead of trying to fix what is not going to work, what is not working, what I see is that the successful business model innovators, they focus on what is working well, and they try to do more of that, and they try to replicate that. So don't waste your time on trying to fix what is not working. Instead, focus on what is working well and see how you can scale and amplify that. With that said, thank you very much. So back to Arno.
Yes, thank you very much, Mark, for this very insightful presentation about business model innovation and try to make it accessible to everyone. We have a small poll question here. You can see in the poll section. The question is about the knowledge of business model Canva. Do you already use business model Canva to think about your strategy? The third option are, it is the first time that I hear about business model innovation, business model Canva. No, but it seems to be a useful tool. And yes, I'm a very strong supporter of business model Canvas and business model innovation. I also would like to remind you that there is the question areas where you can ask your question to the speakers. So do not hesitate to post here your question to the speakers. I would like now to give the floor to our third speaker of today, Laurent Zeul. Laurent Zeul is the CEO of Minusine, a company based in Luxembourg since quite a long time here. And Laurent and his team have transformed the customer experience, and he will explain you what it is now. Laurent, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Arno. Good morning, everybody. I try as well to share my screen with you in order to show you a couple of slides. And what I would like to do is to share an experience we lived within a project we started a couple of years ago called Digital and Beyond within Minusine, and where we intended to keep our traditional values we had for nearby 100 years now as a traditional wholesaler with our customers, and to transform those ones into a digital world, into a new world. And to do this, we actually defined our vision how the world would change for us in the next years. And what you can see here is how we see the evolution of the market. Obviously, we are logistical, and we were a logistical company for over 90 years in the electrotechnical field, where we delivered from cables to light bulbs, over circuit breakers and switches, all kind of equipments to professional installers and integrators and electricians. So from a logistics point of view, we've got everything in place, from the warehouse to the logistics to deliver in time all the goods. The world within the building technology and within the infrastructure, the electrical infrastructure, changed a lot over the last 15 years. A lot of complexity came in. We all know that by the digitalization of the world, the IoT topics came in, and everything got meshed and connected together. And eventually, what we are in front of a situation where the market has a certain need, and on the other side, there is a new intelligence, a new electrification being brought into building infrastructures, being brought into electrical infrastructures. And our plan was to say, if we would like to follow this evolution, we absolutely need to be involved at the beginning, where the concept and the design of a solution is done. Just because if you are involved on that moment, you can much more easily, after the whole thing has been built, help and support to operate and even to reuse the equipment you delivered to the market. So there were a couple of bullet points we decided to bring in, and you can read here and see all the different bullet points we've got in our strategy. We've got involved in that project. We are busy introducing, and we are busy setting up in order to sustain and to make our business sustainable over the next decades, like the planet and like the technology is evolving. One major step we would like to achieve is shown in this slide here. Traditionally, we were a wholesaler, and a lot of sales was done through a counter sale. And we created over 19 years a relation to our customers, to our contacts, which is very often done over the counter. A lot of advices, a lot of consultancy is done over the counter in a traditional way. Since the last 10, 15 years. And the idea was, how can we transform actually those counter sales into a digital world? It's true that since years we started an e-shop, so selling goods as well on the internet, but that's not enough if it comes to a more sophisticated, into a more complex way of selling solutions. We need to create something like this image here. This picture here shows the relationship where on a digital platform, in a digital way, we can still exchange and communicate with our customers over even more and more complex becoming solution and need the customer has. So this is one of the ideas we had, and we said, but we would like absolutely to keep our traditional values true. So the proximity to the customer, the intimacy with our customers need to stay true, and the traditional values of delivery of logistics need anyhow to be the core of our business. One methodology we were using, being used in the building technology and shaping a bit the environment of our customers and of that industry we are working with, is the BIM methodology, building information modeling. And we were saying, well, let's try to use that methodology to transform our business and to make sure in a couple of years we will be in line with how the market will have evolved in order to become an IoT, an Internet of Things, connected market where energy transitions play a major role, where e-mobility with electrical cars will play a major role. And all this is very much linked to intelligence and interconnection of those different devices. And to do that, so obviously we needed to transform as well our knowledge base, and IT skills and digital skills and knowledge of integration is key, but we need to share that with our customer. And the plan within that broader vision I just explained was to do that on a digital platform, where we said, well, if we want to keep on a digital platform online all those strategic elements like the proximity, like the engagement of the customer, so interaction, that really the personal discussions, the relationship with our customers stays true. We need to find something which is certainly video driven, which is certainly voice driven, and which brings back most of a normal chat in between two human beings. And of course, it needs to be digital, so IT plays a role, and probably artificial intelligence or intelligence in general plays a role. And we build around that a concept and a platform we are busy setting up, where many parts are already installed. In order to do that, there is a couple of elements shown on this slide. We plan to use on that platform, but the element I would like to share in more depth with you what we did and where we actually were propelled forwards since the pandemic, since March, quite consistently, is the communication channel. How do we communicate with the customer? And so obviously, before the pandemic and over the last 80 years, like it's shown on this slide, the traditional way we've sold most of our products to our professional customers and contacts was via the counter. So one of our sales reps stood behind the counter and were taking the orders from the customer, and out of the warehouse, the customer could immediately get the products or get delivered by the products via our lorry network. But this means as well that sometimes you stood for a long time behind the counter. There were people in front of you. You were in a noisy environment, and you had always only one expert in front of you, one sales rep in front of you, and hopefully he was the expert in the technology you wanted to have. Now the technology gets broader as well, and the complexity, as I said, raises as well. So it's quite difficult to put that all on one body, on one colleague, and came in then in March the pandemic, Corona. Came in, we suffered all under the lockdown decided by the government, and a couple of weeks later, when the construction industry could get out of the lockdown, we were thinking, how can we now quickly keep all the values we had traditionally on the counter with our customers? And you can see here on those pictures, minimal viable products we launched quite quickly in April. In like this one, behind the counter, and said, okay, let's at least use the possibility to have only one guy standing before the counter with the mask, and our people, they could perhaps stay in an office and could work and communicate with the customer without a mask. And you can very, very well see that in meantime, it was not only in the office where our people could work, but they could do home working. So in meantime, the whole mobility and teleworking issue was solved, and it was solved that we could put all our experts together, not only having one team behind the counter and one team on the phone or behind the computer in the office, but we could really consolidate all those resources. And very quickly, that model of communicating with our customers transformed actually in a thing like it is shown on these pictures here, where we acquired those soundproof boxes, those soundproofed cabins, where I have to say also there's talking about Corona and COVID-19, it's important to know there is a huge air circulation within those cabins, and air is disinfected via UVC light. So the disinfection issue is not a major issue there, and people can then get into the cabin and talk to the different experts on the screen, and passing through their orders, all asking questions and getting support. On the other side, our guys can sit either in the offices or at home and give the same service to the customer as before. It is obvious within that transformation, we didn't expect coming so quickly and so soon, but I think that the pandemic definitely pushed that forward. We are able now with that interface, and it was very well accepted by the contacts and by the customers, because when you sit in those cabins, it's really soundproof. You are like in your office, so it's much more comfortable to pass through your order than standing before a noisy counter. And now the next step, which was the initial step we planned, becomes very easy. We are because our customers, our contacts are used to this kind of communication, and we are pushing forward now this with all those values like reduced waiting times, longer service hours. Obviously, when people the team became bigger and we opening hours get longer. The service is anyhow better because just looking at our conference we have here, it's very easy nowadays, and with those technologies, to have 2, 3, 4, even 10 people within a second connected together and giving support to the problem of the customer and aiding the customer. So the knowledge transfer and information flows much quicker. It's clear that the flexibility working from home and from everywhere for us is a huge cost issue as well, and reduced actually, or we gained a lot of efficiency on that side. And as long as the pandemic persists, there is less exposure to COVID-19, and because of that consolidation of all the resources, a lot of additional sales and cross-selling was possible as well. Now, the next step, and that comes very close to artificial intelligence and a way we would like now to push, and we are busy launching exactly what you see on that slide, is using the same technology as we have now the infrastructure in place. We've got the people in place, we've got the processes in place to deal with our customer, to work with our customers on that level. We are busy now with a small bot on our web page, where of course the customer needs to log in into the platform, and then through that small bot he can get an interactive link with our sales expert, so he can, from the construction site, from his office, out of his car, out of where he ever is, can immediately take contact with our guys, ask the questions, get support, and pass through the order. So we didn't reinvent the wheel in doing this, but the innovation we tried to bring in was actually to use the different technologies, the different digital ways we could have available, combine them in an adapted business model, and push that forward. We were lucky that this unfortunate COVID-19 story forced us and pushed everybody to more quicker and faster accept actually the digital way of communication and the digital way of communicating on technical, more complex topics. This is what I wanted to share with you as one element out of course, a whole vision and a whole platform being integrated and being set up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laurent. This is very impressive what you achieve already. I see that you really take the constraint of the COVID situation and transform it into a really nice opportunity to transform the customer relation. We have now a final poll question. If you want to respond to it, it's about rethinking customer operation. Do you think that customer experience is key to your strategy? Yes, and IT tools can really add value. Yes, but I have no expertise to support me in rethinking the customer experience. And no, customer experience is less important than operation. That's the last poll question. I think we have in the question area a lot of questions that has been asked, and we have about 5 to 10 minutes now to make a small Q&A session. I will give the floor to Jean-Philippe.
It will be very short, 5 minutes, because we received a lot of questions, and I do have to say that the presentations were very good. Thank you very much for the speakers. So maybe my first question is for Edouard. We receive some question about technically how your solution is working. So especially how many data do you need to feed the algorithm? What really is the difference between the business rules engines, and about the confidentiality, or do you deal with that? So a lot of technical questions.
Yeah.
Can you bring
sure.
some?
Right. And I will try to be very short so that I can let my colleagues speak as well. Right. The amount of data, usually we play with 3 to 5 years of historical data. That's one thing. Now, when it comes to confidentiality, there are different ways. So confidentiality mainly plays when it's B2C, right? So B2B, we don't have those issues. Well, I mean, of course, we always have the confidentiality about the information that we detain about, turnovers and customers and so on. But when it comes to GDPR, there are specific rules in place. So either we don't know which customer, there are specific algorithms applied to that, so that only our customers know actually the end customer name and we don't, for example. And moreover, we cannot use that information when it comes to B2C for our own purposes. We are required to use it only in the context of our own customers. And there was another question which I forgot, Jean-Philippe.
Yeah, what is exactly the difference between the business rules engines?
Okay. The difference between the two is that with business rules engine, you have to pre-configure everything. And so every parameter needs to be pre-configured, and you need to specify value for each of the parameters. So it offers, I mean, it's great to start, but once you want to assess a big amount of data, it reaches certain limitations. Whereas AI allow you, moreover, to start playing with, well, I mean, of course, with quantitative data, but also with qualitative data, what a rule-based engine does not necessarily allow you to do.
Yeah, thank you. Very clear. I got a question. So from the last talk of Laurent, the COVID-19 was here one of the motivation to change and to adapt new smart business strategy. So maybe this question is both for Marc and for Laurent. Is there a very good moment in order to initiate these changes, to think about changing this, having a smart business strategy simply? Maybe, Marc, you can start.
Yeah, sure. So I think that we have definitely seen that the COVID pandemic has accelerated a lot of digital transformation. And so really, also in industries like banking, where before nobody ever thought it would possibly be possible that people work from home actually, and some organizations were not even ready to do that, right? So they had no laptop access to the network, for example, and people had to do it with BlackBerry or whatever. So I think, yes, COVID has accelerated it. And I also believe that now that we have seen what is possible, that there will be more coming in the future, and that this trend is going to continue. So I really don't think that there is anything going back to what it used to be last year.
So Laurent, same question.
I fully agree with Marc, with what Marc said. It's true that I was presenting it like we are now happy that we were forced to use that plan we had and to use it perhaps more in a more accelerated way. But what I think is important as well is that one realizes that it's important to be aligned with how your customer is equipped or is able to take as well your digital services or your digital interaction into account. And here, and Marc said it as well, the pandemic brought in that people having had old mobile phones before changed to more modern PDAs and devices being able to do that. So that helped certainly and pushed us forward. But when I think now on what happened and what will happen, it's still true that within changing a business model, I think you need to be aligned with your market, and you need to be perhaps ahead, but not too much ahead. Otherwise, you're losing your market. So that's the tricky thing within the construction, within different sectors, where sometimes it's not easy to impose and to force that digital way you would like to do it. And one need to be aligned, and I think that our counter sale experience is an interesting one. Unfortunately, it's just one element out of the whole thing, but it's an interesting one and a successful one, I have to say.
Okay, so yes, Arnaud?
No, I don't know if there is other question or if we can conclude now.
I do have plenty of questions.
I can imagine, but we have also to stick to the timing. Well, I think it is time now to conclude this webinar. I would like to warmly thank our guests and for their respective contribution and the speech, very informative. This is not finished as per, because you can still continue to discuss and to exchange in the group rooms if you wish. Also, thanks to the platform, you can exchange directly via direct messaging. You have the inbox section where you can exchange. So this webinar is now finished, but you can carry on with exchanging and discussing and making contact thanks to the platform. I would like also to thank Nathalie for the support, the technical support for this webinar. And finally, you will receive feedback form with all the links to the replay, because each of the session will be available on YouTube, so that you can see and much in details all these webinars. So do not hesitate to share and to spread the word around you. So this is it for now. I would like to thank everybody, and do not hesitate to enter in contact with Lux Innovation. We can help you and make the contact. So we are at your disposal. Thank you very much, and have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.